Well, we are getting news that it's time to start our first match, so let's hop into it. Okay, so YungDingo playing Mardu Energy. What is he sort of looking for? Let's see.
Yeah, I mean it's a classic aggro deck, right? Like the deck doesn't really have a lot of expensive cards. You want to make sure you have a good 1-drop and a 2-drop. If your opening hand has 4 more lands, that's pretty much automatically a mulligan for me. This hand looks pretty decent. There's a Thoughtseize, a 1-drop creature, a 2-drop creature, and a removal spell. I don't think you can ask for much more than that. Maybe something like a Ragavan on the play instead of the guide, but this hand is really good.
Especially being on the draw for YungDingo, he really wants to have the ability to go 1-drop on turn 1 and then double 1-drop on turn 2 to interact. And it looks like Mason's hand is pretty slow if this delighted halfling doesn't stick. It has some grist, but it's not going to be able to do a ton on turn 2, assuming this gets killed turn 1.
So now, if you're on the Mardu side, do you just automatically kill the Halfling turn 1, or do you start by playing a creature?
Sort of the issue with holding the Galvanic Discharge for later is that you don't really want to kill a Yawgmoth once it's in play. You want to keep the board clear. And I think seeing that YungDingo's on the draw here, yeah, I would just keep the board clear and potentially just
I think your draw lines up pretty well here.
keeping up.
Yeah, your draw lines up pretty well here by drawing another 1-drop. So now you can play either Thoughtseize plus Guide, next turn play another Guide plus the Ajani, and you use all the mana every turn. When you're playing an aggro deck, I think that's one of the, or pretty much any deck or any Magic game these days, mana efficiency is one of the most important aspects of the game. So being able
This is
to
a
use every mana.
pretty interesting setup for Mason here too, because he got the grist that has to be taken. And since you have to take the grist, that means that the cauldron can immediately make another mini grist if Mason chooses. Like right now, he can just start turboing out tokens all of a sudden on turn 3, which usually Dingo would never want to take the grist in facing the Agatha Soul Cauldron this early. So that's a pretty tough setup already. I mean, he's going to start making, a grist out of all of these insect tokens.
Yeah, lots of energy for Dingo though. Um, the Flyers can certainly do some work.
Yeah, the main concern I see from Dingo's side is he has to sort of race with these Gyda Um, the question is if the tokens each becoming a copy of Grist every turn lets him get out in front of it still. Like the Gyda is pretty huge, but he probably has to kill the Grist so that Mason doesn't get to immediately minus and kill the guide.
Wow, another land for Mason. Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah. Any spell there is pretty good for Mason, but in this spot he just has to continue chaining, making some creatures. I mean, in this spot, it seems like Dingo just needs to find some more ways of generating energy so we could suit up multiple flyers and get in. And it's super hard to get it on the ground now.
Yeah, the fact that God puts 2 counters on it and it also gains a flying counter. I haven't played much limited, and I saw people talking about the guide being the best card in MH3 limited, and I'm like, wait, how can a 1-drop be the best card in the format? Then I read the card, I'm like, okay, this card is this card is crazy.
Yeah, and not to mention the Ajani is annoying enough that it's possible he can't even block this cat token just so the
Mm.
Ajani doesn't flip. So it's a lot of damage coming in already. It's potentially 7 damage, and the Fable's a huge draw too, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see another swing with, okay, so attacks with the cat as well. Doesn't mind sacrificing that for the greater good to flip the Ajani.
Right, and he gets to make another flyer. So already hitting for 8 damage in the air. Things are definitely looking scary for Mason C right now. I do wonder if Mason's just thinking, man, I guess I gotta just block this cat. It's never really getting too much easier. But I guess he's just gonna take his time and doesn't want that Johnny to flip. The main issue being now the Guide Soul is threatened lethal in the air.
Well, Young Wolf's not going to do it.
Not exactly what he's looking for. I mean, the only thing that Mason has going for him right now is he could minus this other grist. But oh, you know what's interesting? He hit a Yawgmoth actually. So if he wants to Soul Cauldron the Yawgmoth, he could start
Oh,
sacrificing with the Young Wolf, and maybe he can get something going this turn. That's actually kind of huge, milling the Yawgmoth there.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's see what's going to happen now.
Okay, well, at the very least, Mason can play this Young Wolf and draw like 3 or 4 cards. Just sacrifice the Young Wolf, sacrifice another token. He's at a very low life total, so it is a precarious position regardless.
Was Yavimon one of the decks you considered for the Pro Tour, or your team considered?
I believe that our team thought Yawgmoth was kind of like Nadu if you were a little bit slower and had to use your life
Mm.
total as a resource. So we quickly dismissed it as worse than a Nadu build, but we previously thought that Yawgmoth was going to be one of the best decks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that comparison is really good. I think that was true for a lot of decks in the format where people eventually just said, "Hey, if I play Nadu, it's basically the same thing, but Nadu is faster and more resilient, and has a better sideboard and stuff like that." So yeah, the deck is certainly perhaps a little too good. So
Wow,
here's hoping that. Uh,
but here this quarter calling is huge too because Mason can get access to a I believe he wants to get either a second Young Wolf or Blood Artist here, and Blood Artist allows him to generate free sacrifices. And then if he finds, is that an infinite already? I think he needs one more piece.
well, looks like Mason thinks it's or Dingo thinks it's GG. So let's move on to game two. How are
Okay.
we how are we sideboarding? So Ragavans are going out. That makes sense against a deck full of Young Wolves and other X1 or one X creatures. What are you gonna bring in from the energy side?
Yeah, so it looks like from the side of Yawgmoth, you're basically just going to be marginally upgrading your creature package. There's not too much interaction from Dingo's side that you care about. Like the Wear Tears maybe can deal with Soul Cauldrons if he wants to bring those in, but they're pretty narrow.
Mm,
Um, Again, one of the issues we're seeing is that you don't have that many sideboard cards with the way these Pro Tour decks are built for
yeah.
the other decks. Like the Mardu deck wasn't built to particularly attack the Yawgmoth deck. And so all these sideboard cards are for Tron, Ruby Storm, Nadu. You see the 4 Damping Spheres and the Dranith Magistrates and the Wear Chairs even for Nadu. So not a
Yeah.
lot to work with, but some marginal upgrades there. And yeah, Mason's going to be pretty happy with his overall game one configuration, not changing much either.
Yeah, I feel like we should have maybe been able to sort of modify the sideboards a little bit because it feels like we're playing with like 3 card sideboards or 5 card sideboards. A lot of that stuff does not really do much in the new meta game that we're playing here.
Right. It's a lot closer to 3 or 5 card sideboards. But, at
Mm.
the very least, one interesting part that came out of it was I was trying to think of what decks have sideboards that are specifically not that good against the top 2 decks and maybe good against the other meta decks that we would have to bring given the ban requirements.
Look at this hand from Dingo. No one drop, no black mana, and double flight. Wow, that is super awkward.
Yeah, I mean, Blake is not going to be a super awesome card against Yawgmoth either. Like the mana cost being so expensive and being hard to flash back, plus not having a ton of relevant cards to Lightning Helix means it's not really that desirable here. Meanwhile, Mason's getting in there with double Young Wolf.
Yeah, Mason's a pretty good setup. this game. No black mana for Dingo, so yeah, this is not looking great. What does Raptor spin into?
Not ideal. He hits a Guide of Souls, one of the better cards he could hit there, actually, because it lets him have some counterplay into Grist if the Grist wanted to come down and take something. But the most annoying part here for Dingo is just the lack of black mana, like you mentioned.
All right, Grist deals with the soul Guide of Souls right away. That makes sense. You don't want to risk having the Grist killed. Raptor number 2, but yeah, this is not looking great for Dingo.
No, I mean, it would have to be a pretty huge hit off this Amped Raptor. I'm trying to think of what cards could do it. I mean, Fable's actually the best one.
Yeah. Wow, yeah.
Okay, I mean, if you could tutor a card into play there, I think Fable would be your pick. So I'm not unhappy with this if I were Mason.
Young Wolf protects the Grist. Chord of Calling is a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we're super close to getting a Yawgmoth into play. And even if we don't get the Yawgmoth into play this turn, the Wall of Roots will help you set up mana. We have, the Grist tokens buying a lot of time. So I like Mason's position here.
Yeah, do you play the wall and do you also play a Ballista for 1? Just to
That's
have
what
an
I
extra
was
creature in
thinking.
play?
I don't really want to chord for anything here. In my head, I was actually thinking you might just want to hard cast Endurance here as the other option, because it's pretty annoying for
Hmm.
Dingo to deal with that potentially. Also, it just lets you have better blocks on the ground.
Yeah, sometimes just getting a big body into play is good enough. There's black mana for Dingo, but is that too late?
Yeah, I mean, Dingo can start to make some attacks here. The question is, can he pressure this Grist enough to keep it off the board? I mean, he does get the Fable treasure token, so the Fable's really doing like double duty here, being a looter that lets him, fix his mana a bit and discard some of the clunkiness of his hand, and the treasure token letting him potentially double spell here. So I don't hate this from Dingo's side. Fatal push. You can maybe send them all in at Grist. One of the funny things that Dingo also is going for him is if he gets to use the Arena of Glory with the Flage, that could deal like some real damage if he gets to haste that out. So that's something that I'd be keeping in mind if I were Mason.
Yeah, I think I would have liked the Ballista to be in play. Like that gives you better blocks if you want to. You can protect the Grist. You also have more creatures in play to sort of guarantee the Chord of Calling next turn. Now it's gonna get awkward again for
I mean,
Mason. He doesn't find a lot of the land.
the part from Mason's side here that I would be asking is like, when do we plan on playing this Ballista? Like, is it only like a post combo card, or do we plan on casting it like in a different window of time? Because our mana is really the main constraint here. We have all the spells we need with the Court of Calling. Ooh, and there's a Yawgmoth, so might not even need to go Court for 4. We can maybe just set up the Yawgmoth next turn. I'm not sure what I think about the timing here on casting Endurance main phase. We can tuck that Flage, but I mean, it's a small thing that could have been punished. It didn't end up working out that way, but if Dingo were to Bow Masters that token in response, then our chord would have been a lot less effective here.
Mm.
So now we can chord for Delighted Halfling, which at least helps us with the acceleration. Still, Dingo's building up a board. Like, these tokens are sizable. We have another Flage in hand, and the Fable token flipping does actually mean that there's some problems with Fable token copying Bowmasters. Not to mention, Bowmasters is one of the scarier cards for the Yawgmoth deck if it gets Yawgmoth in play, because it
Yeah.
has to spend a resource killing it immediately. So, something to think about.
Yeah, somehow Mace is actually still at 19. The only damage he took this game was from the fetch land.
This is surprising. Dingo sending in the Orcish Bowmasters. Is this like a bluff attack, you think? Like, what is he thinking here? Like, bluff another Bowmasters?
You can bring it back with the Nightmare.
That's true.
I think he's
Yeah.
okay if it dies, just kills, finishes off the Halfling anyway. Yeah, I think I like the attack with
Yeah,
the
it makes sense that
Bowmasters as
you can just
well.
bring it back with the Nightmare. Here you can just Flage kill the Halfling even. So I like that. Oh, you know what? The Nightmare plus Flage is quite nice here, right? We can just loop the Flage, kill a young wolf, and
But yeah.
suddenly Mason's board is not that threatening. Wow.
Yeah, all of a sudden Mason's board is gone. He doesn't have enough mana to court anything out. Yeah, I really would have liked that Walking Ballista to be in play because it doesn't seem like Mason's going to have enough time to play it anymore. He might try to stay alive for a little bit longer, but I don't think he's going to have a good window to actually win the game.
Yeah, and one of the tensions here is we kind of need to kill this Bowmasters now, but the Nightmare is just going to make it so the threats are going to stick
Yeah.
forever. And we could even see Dingo put in, 2 copies of Flage next turn if he wants to, just Lightning Helix some things down or Mason's Face. So I'm really liking Dingo's position, and he just Mason agrees, calls it a game.
I like that. Let's just go to game 3. I'm probably not winning anyway. Let's just make it fast. Looks like Mason is gonna do some changes based on being on the play or on the draw. What do you like in a matchup like this with Yavmod? Is it something that comes to your mind that you would change? Like maybe not have a fatal push when you're on the play, be a little bit more proactive rather than defensive, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in a
Uh,
similar matchup to this, it seems like Mason's main goal should be to focus on enacting his game plan, given the fact that he can go over the top of what Dingo's doing, but if he tries to one for one the Mardu value engine, it might not end up prevailing. So I like just focusing on the speed here and leaning into the power of
hmm.
Yawgmoth being enough.
All right, here Dingo starts with a turn 1 Guide of Souls instead of a Thoughtseize. I quite like that because you're probably not going to take their young wolf or delighted halfling anyway with the Thoughtseize, so might as well just start on the guide. Turn 2, you can Thoughtseize, play another guide. Start getting in there from turn 3 with a big guide instead of starting on a Thoughtseize. This way, you also get a little bit more information.
I like the play too, and the Thoughtseize has, like you said, like you get more information. It has like a different value when you cast it on turn 2 versus turn 1 that probably goes up, where you get to see, let's say Mason drew a second Yawgmoth there. You would really have to enact a different game plan. So I like how Dingo's played it thus far. The 2 Guided Souls are probably the scariest thing for Mason to see here as well.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, that's certainly the best creature in the matchup for Dingo. Obviously, Bowmasters is great as well, but uh, for the early pressure and making big flyers, that's kind of um, how you want to make your game plan against Yavmod.
Right, and we can't quite get up to the threshold to cast Yawgmoth this turn, but I like the fact that Mason can develop his board some more, um, get up to potentially playing the Walking Ballista right now. Oh, so again, he has the same idea of like, I'll hold off on playing it, um, so that I can potentially save it for a threat later or have it not get bowmastered. But the main problem is we can't court for Yawgmoth yet. So the best thing we can get is like a copy of Grist.
What's the play here from Dingo? Do you play the Raptor? Do you just hold for the Bowmasters, try to kill one of the creatures?
I was
guess.
thinking, like, you could
Mm,
even Bowmaster the Haywire Might in order to just get in with the Guided Souls immediately because you get the energy.
mm.
Maybe that's too aggressive, but I had some hope that getting that damage in here was pretty nice, and I'm not that afraid of much given the fact that Chord for Grist isn't good counterplay on this board, really.
Yeah, I like being aggressive as well. Like if you're gonna just pass the turn and take this like sort of a defensive um, route, then I'm not sure if if I can see or like skipping the second turn. I think that just gives the Yavmon player too much time to set up. So I would have also maybe tried to get more aggressive, but we'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world here. Oh, did I miss something? He scored for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, my apologies. So he actually did have the sufficient mana to chord for 4. I guess I missed that the Haywire Might being played gives him +1 mana in the exchange because of the wall. So that's
Oh, it's
pretty
a free
cool.
mana from the ball. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. So Mason actually set up perfectly. And now there's a Yawgmoth in play, regardless of the fact um, that this Yawgmoth is going to get killed, we get to draw some cards here. So I really like Mason's spot. Just all of a sudden, he's going to draw like 4 cards and get to untap versus only 1 Guide Souls. And he already picked up the Refuel Yawgmoth. So this is one of the strengths of the deck, like we were talking about earlier with like Nanu has a big draw engine that's similar to Yawgmoth. Well, Yawgmoth has a powerful draw engine that can go quite hard into creature decks. So I don't really love Dingo's chances versus the active Yawgmoth about to come down in a turn or two. And he's missing his land drops, which is pretty tough thing to recover from.
I mean, that's pretty much what you want to play against, right? With Yavmod, you certainly want to play against creature decks. Is there any matchup you would rather play, than a deck with small creatures?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in this current modern landscape, this might be the most desirable matchup, like of the top tier decks, something like the Smarter Energy deck.
Yeah, like if you ban the combo decks that are faster than you, or you don't have to play as many creatures, you can play more interaction, like fallacies or grist or grief. I would rather take those as well. But if you take those out of the picture, then it's a bunch of creature decks, and Yavimod's pretty good against that. I guess there's also Jeskai Control. How does that matchup usually play out?
That might be a tougher one for Yawgmoth in particular. I would guess that the Rathless guys being able to hit your Soul
Mm,
Quadrant and such could make it tough. But
yeah.
yeah, we will hopefully get a chance to see that matchup in action potentially later today. And now this Yawgmoth is just going to be backbreaking because against the double Raptor, I mean, it's going to pick those both off with ease, and we'll see how much heart Dingo has in this. I can't imagine.
Yeah, there's a Thoughtseize as well. I think Mason hasn't made a land drop yet.
I
He
think
can,
that's a fatal push,
yeah.
but that's even better, right? He can fatal push away the Guide Souls.
Yeah.
So sort of an absolute beating in this game and a surprise win out of nowhere in in game 1 when it actually looked like Dingo might have crossed the finish line. But Yawgmoth is quite resilient to interaction like we saw.
Yeah, this was a slaughter actually. It looked a little close in that second game, which was a game that I probably wouldn't have picked Dingo to win based on how the game started. Uh, but yeah, Mason's deck is just too well set up against the small creature decks.
Yep, definitely very tough. And I think that one of the things that Yawgmoth always had going for it is it was happy to play against these small creature decks, like we said, but additionally, it has the tools to grind through so much interaction that spot removal isn't very good against it. So kind of going like what we saw here earlier in the game where the Yawgmoth came down off court and Dingo immediately killed the Yawgmoth, but It drew 3 cards, so that was all.
Yeah. You need pressure combined with removal, but the pressure is really hard to keep up when you're attacking into Young Wolves and Wall of Roots, and yeah, it's just your opponent also has cards like Fatal Push, so just seems like a bad matchup for Dingo.
At the very least, Guide of Souls is one of the better creatures I could possibly imagine in Magic to counterplay versus Yawgmoth, being like a 1/2 and enabling the flying and being super aggressive. But even that isn't really enough, just given the context of how the Yawgmoth deck is set up. Once it gets the engine online, it
Mm.
will pick those down slowly.
Yeah, I think even if Guide of Souls was like a 1 mana Sarah Angel, I think even then the matchup would probably be bad for Dingo.
I mean, that's one way of putting it. I think you're right, but that really illustrates the severity of
Yeah.
some of the structural issues in the matchup. Let's talk about for a second. I mean, I think this matchup is looking pretty over. How are you feeling? We're about to face off in a match, Martin,
Mhm.
and I'll just tell you right now, I am going to be banning your prowess deck because I've seen you with your red aggressive creatures, and I want no part in that. So that's
Which
that's
deck
what I don't want to face.
which deck should I ban from your 3 decks?
That's entirely up to you. I haven't played any Magic with those 3 decks, so it'll be a first for me with all of them, actually.
I wanna make sure we play some cool matches on the stream, so, I'm just probably gonna I like the blue-black deck, I really like that. I think you mentioned it was played by was it Shota or Shota played the Jeskai deck?
Shota played Jeskai, Yuta played Blue-Black.
Blue-black was really cool. I'm certainly gonna let you play that even though, it looks like it might just be the strongest deck of those 3. I think I'll probably just ban Jeskai, which leaves you with, what is it? Blue-black
Mardu
and Mardu, okay,
and
yeah.
Blue-Black.
Yeah, the players are kind of just going through the motions. It's one of those, I'll play it out because it's game 3, but we just kind of need to go through the motions, and Mason, there's pretty much no way he can lose the game.
The only way he could possibly lose the game would be if he somehow got Lightning Helixed out of it because he can't gain life. But
Mm,
I imagine Mason's thinking about that and does
yeah.
not want that to happen. What is Mason doing with Young Wolf right now? Just drawing cards, looks like.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on the stack. I'm not actually sure what exactly is happening. One of the young wolves got eaten by the spell bomb, I think.
Well, there's the cord, so that means Blood Artist is coming down, and Blood Artist should be good enough to win the game here.
Mm.
Oh, this is cool. He wants to go for the fancy kill. Just proliferate 2 times and get in the rest of the damage with Walking Ballista and Young Wolf. I
That
respect
works. That
it.
works. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm excited for us to have a chance to battle it out. I think we have some sweet decks, and there it is. We see Mason winning the first match with the Yawgmoth.
Yeah. Congrats to Mason. Well played. And yeah, it looks like Yavmod was a solid choice, especially if you expected a lot of people to be on creature decks.